This is the Clutch Picks Betting Podcast presented by ClutchPoints, powered by DraftKings. Like, follow, and subscribe, rate us, review us, all that other fun stuff. Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. My name is Sheldon Alexander, and I'm joined by Matt Russell, sports betting professional and creator of The Window, available on Substack and wherever you get your podcasts. Mr. Matt Russell, how are you doing after an epic, maybe even epically bad, depending on which side you happen to fall on with some of these games? Week 5 in the NFL, after a week 5 in the NFL, as we head into week 6 of the NFL season. How are you doing, my dude?
Well, listen, I do my podcast on Tuesday morning. There's a pretty valid reason for that. Probably not somebody who should be in front or behind or whatever of a microphone on Sunday nights sometimes. Probably not somebody, depending on how Sunday goes, that should be behind a microphone on Monday mornings. This one was like, all right, maybe we push the record button at like noon on Tuesday just to really flush out the Arizona Cardinals and Amari DiMercato and everybody.
Are we going to get into this right away?
I don't know that we ever need to get into it. I keep kind of, as part of my workflow, I keep kind of going, all right, well, this is the last I'm going to talk about it, right? Because, of course, like the podcast, you're going to talk about it. And then, like, meanwhile, like, it's still my job to write about Survivor for Yahoo Sports. And so, like, just because I'm out of Survivor doesn't mean, like, my job no longer exists, thankfully. Thankfully, there's still people out there who want Survivor information. But I'm just, like, sitting there writing about it, going, like, all right, okay, this is going to be the last time that I write about it. And, of course, I send out a notification on the Substack for The Window for that article, and I have a little blurb that is sort of off the cuff, a little bit more sort of casual than sort of the straighter, narrower focus that is the Yahoo article. And then I'm like, okay, we're writing about this again. And it's like, yeah, maybe this is the last time I'm going to reference this game. And then I realized that I got to come on. I shouldn't say got to, love to come on and talk with you. And it's like, you know what? Either right off the hop or at some point, because they play this week, the Arizona Cardinals are going to come up. And so, yeah, when you ask like how things are going, like, yeah, I think betting went like okay this weekend, like did pretty well. Had my best against the spread record of the or results, I should say, of the season, because nothing insane happened really from a spread perspective. Listen, you could make the case that the Cardinals should have covered -7.5 in that game. I would, sign off on that, but I didn't have anything to do with the spread. But of course, because something always has to go wonky, has to go badly, the Cardinals blowing that lead in such a unique, epic, historic, and unfathomable in the history of the football and the future of the football fashion that, of course, we just can't have a normal weekend where everybody's just cool. Nobody can just be cool all at once.
So I'm going to get this out of the way here because
sure.
You see me rocking the Jays hat right now. The weekend was spent at games 1 and 2, in case you couldn't tell from my voice. The weekend was spent at games 1 and 2.
Get this man some hot water.
At the Rogers Center, in which the sun was out and blazing, and it's October, whatever, 4th and 5th, whatever the dates were. So Sunday, needless to say, NFL football was just not a thing that I did. I was at the game, which that left Monday for me to catch up on said football. And I actually went into the office and I said, oh, wow, I need to catch up on football. I didn't even see what happened yesterday. And I asked one of our guys, I was like, hey, how did our like group pools ticket go this week? He's like, oh, we lost like a bunch of games. Like, you don't know what happened? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, we lost this game. Arizona lost. I'm like, Arizona lost? That was our survivor pick. He's like, wait, so you haven't seen how they lost?
Oh my God.
I'm like, no, I have no idea what happened. And then proceeded to watch it. And as I'm watching it, I'm still like, wait, how did they lose this game? Like, doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
And even after your man drops it at the goal line, I'm like, okay, they're still up. Like, how?
Yeah, we're fine.
And
the Titans haven't scored a touchdown since the Reagan administration. What could possibly go wrong here going forward?
And you couldn't even explain to someone on like their best day an interception, fumbling it on your own, and then your man's coming and kicking it into your own end zone. It's just like, what?
Yeah, like a
What are we
series of dudes.
doing? Yeah, it's
A
like, what?
series of dudes. So again, like I said, I wrote my article for Survivor. It should be out on Wednesday over at
Mhm.
Yahoo Sports, and I'm obviously talking about the Cardinals game because, and this is just the way for me Survivor sort of works. Like if you're gonna knock me out of Survivor, like something effed up's gonna have to happen. Like Russell Wilson's going to have to throw for 450 yards, right? Like it's going to have to be an outlier result. And
Something
so this
crazy.
was, of course, an outlier. Something's crazy because like I pride myself on my ability to sort of recognize things like the 49ers and the Rams. Like that shouldn't be in an 8.5 point spread, and that shouldn't be a game even for Survivor consideration because I'm prepared and I'm aware that the Rams have the Panthers and the Saints very
Mhm.
soon coming down the slate here, coming down the tracks here on their schedule. And so, like, why would you use the Rams? Why would you bleep with your guy Shanahan? Same
Yeah.
thing with regards to like the Patriots and the Bills. Like the Bills have shown in the last couple of weeks, being in close games with the Dolphins and Saints,
Mhm.
that like it might not be as easy as you think it's going to be. Like these are obvious signals to maybe not go in that direction, but people did go in that direction. And so whether it was before or after the Cardinals game, you're sitting there going like, yeah, like you people deserve to get knocked out of Survivor because you were ill prepared. I don't feel that way about the Cardinals, and like you said, you're trying to explain it to people. Like you have to understand from like a geographic standpoint, right? Like we've made no bones about the fact that we are here in Toronto, and that game two, was happening at it's a 4 o'clock start.
Yeah.
It was happening right at the exact same time. And so I understand, people are locked in on that baseball game, and then maybe there's another football game that they have on a second screen. That, given the fact that the score was 21-6 for the Cardinals, you could very easily switch off to Seattle and Denver or any other game basically that was going on as your even second screen opportunity. And so I'm like, I have just enough weird in me that in my head I'm going, not enough of our group is watching this game because I feel like with the Cowboys fiasco and with the Russell Wilson deal,
Mhm.
it's like we had enough people willing the Cowboys to come back and win that game like in
Yeah.
overtime. Like I realize we
Mhm.
have no control over it, but also at the same time, like in that moment, I'm ready to make deals with just about anybody, from a spiritual standpoint. So like why wouldn't I at least have at least like a 4% bitterness towards the fact that everybody's like celebrating the Blue Jays hammering on the Yankees in game two and not being sort of aware that like the craziest bleep is happening right now, and like it's our fault because we are not like vigilant and like keeping our eyes on it. Like that actually enters my brain. And so when I say like, listen, I try as my best to be sort of responsible, even keeled, level headed, et cetera, et cetera. But like
Mhm.
when this is happening, like I want somebody to talk to about this. And the fact that people have given up on even bothering watching this game was driving me insane because like, guys, I'm not going to be able to accurately describe this to you after the fact. And like I can send you the clip of Kyler Murray getting hit in the face with the ball. And by the way, during a false start that just nobody called. The right guard was standing up, Shell. The right guard was standing up. Find me another play that the officials just let go when the right guard is just standing up out of his crouch. But the officials are like, that's fine. And then DeMarcado, and listen, the blame 99.9% goes to DeMarcado for dropping that football.
Mhm.
No one's shown me a scenario in a shot of him dropping that football before the goal line.
Yeah.
He does it on the goal line.
Yeah.
It's
Where
still in his hands.
where
Like
are the cameras? Where's the camera
he
angles?
is he's Dr. J finger rolling it as he's going across the goal line. To me, that's control. If
Yeah.
you could be spinning the ball on your finger running down the sideline, I still feel like you've got really good control of the ball in that instance, right? This idea of like, well, he lost control before the goal line. Like, no, he didn't. Nobody touched him. He could have done like a patty cake hot potato thing if he wanted to, as long as it was intentional, and I would have felt like he had control. And so again, like this stuff with the NFL is like, yeah, we're gonna try to keep this game as close as possible. And if it means just blatantly ignoring a false start on one turnover and then just deciding that this was clear and obvious and indisputable evidence, it's like, no, man, no, it wasn't. And you could easily have called the guy who intercepted the ball down if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You could say that he gave himself up, right?
So
And
much
so,
going on.
yeah, like again, like when it comes to Survivor and stuff like that, right? Like there's plenty of sort of blame to go around, and a lot of times you go, all right, how much of this is my fault? In the same way, like if I had picked the Rams, I'd be like, how much is this my fault for choosing the Rams and ignoring the fact that the 49ers weren't really much of a downgrade in that game because of the injuries that they had, or taking the Bills after what we'd sort of seen from the Bills. Like I feel like the chooser, there's a high percentage of blame to go on that team, on that person. For the Cardinals, it's like 100%, man. Like, yeah, that's just on the Cardinals. That's not a me problem. That's a them problem. The Cardinals, from a strategic standpoint, were the right side. Whatever. They can just go rot and whatever. So, anyway, I think we flushed that out enough for the
All I'll
first
say
10
is-
minutes of the podcast.
All I'll say is when you have reporters saying that Kyler Murray, your starting quarterback, had to go get concussion tested for a snap hitting him in the face.
They were like, yeah, I think it's his foot. And I was like, oh, maybe it's like a turf toe thing because he like dove,
They
sort of
have to make an
latently
excuse.
dove. And I'm like, yeah, I guess turf toe makes more sense than a concussion. Like the football hit him in the face. Like he's got a helmet on.
But between that and like everyone's reaction to the coach making contact with your boy DeMarcado, and then people still
And
being
now
like, no, but hold on. People being like, you know what? I kind of understand. That was my reaction.
Of
Look
course.
how mad you are.
I'm
The
so-
headphones are coming out.
The headphones just came out of my ears. I just snapped my head like I got hit in the face with a snap like Kyler Murray, and the headphone came out. Like, how did we get to victim shaming to the point where like the guy who everyone agrees is not worth not cutting on Monday?
Yeah.
Right? Like he's got 3 career touchdowns and he couldn't be bothered to run through the goal line, run to the end zone. Like 3 career touchdowns, you should be running that thing down the tunnel and bringing that football home with you. Like your shelf isn't that jammed up with stuff that the football shouldn't be on it afterwards, right? I'm watching Sunday Night Football and there's a Bills fan taking off with a football up the stairs after he catches one. I was like, if that guy has the same, or if DeMarcado had that guy's energy, we are fine in this circumstance. So anyway, the point is just like, yeah, he should be cut. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait a second. Jonathan Gannon is under fire.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who needs to be fined $100,000.
I'll just say,
like, what?
There used to be a Chris Rock bit that I'm not going to reference what the Chris Rock bit is about. But what I will say is that I'm not saying that the coach should ever make contact with the player.
Right.
But I understand.
Yeah.
And if you know the joke, if you know the actual joke, I'll let you go find that for yourself on the interwebs. But, we're 13 minutes into this pod right now?
No kidding. Yeah.
But well worth it. Yeah, what are we doing again? Oh yeah, football picks.
Yeah, sports, right?
Sports picks, yeah. People might be new to the show, or people who might have found, because you also need a place of comfort after losing your Survivor pick last week. Here's what we do. I'm going to make a pick, and then Matt comes in with the information, education on where the line was, where it could be heading into kickoff. The goal is that I try to come out on the other side with a much more informed pick. I play the role of the viewer, and sometimes Matt convinces me to change my pick, and other times I foolishly don't listen, but that's a joke. That's the bit. That's the show. The goal is to win more than I lose. In this season so far, people, I am failing you. I promise I will be able to bounce back and make things happen, because a 7-7 week somehow. And then I look at some of the games, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. But we will be making the climb back. We'll be making the climb back. You know what? There's one place to start. And it's the same place that we start each and every single week. Thursday Night Football. You got the Eagles, 7-point favorites in New York to take on the Giants. And, the Eagles are playing with fire for a couple weeks there in a row, and it finally caught up with them. Blew a fourth quarter lead to the Bengals, and they're still struggling with that whole run versus pass balance, all that fun stuff. Even the optics of that last second Hail Mary and AJ Brown basically deflecting it away from his own teammate. Amazing stuff going on in Philly. But Either way, speaking of blowing games, you got the Giants who started off all right, 2 touchdowns quickly and then had 5 straight turnovers. I don't know if I've ever seen
Yeah,
that
it was
happen
sick.
before. When you lose to the Saints, it's a tough spot. It's a very tough spot. Thursday, though, is tough because I'll say
Yeah.
this 7
Okay.
points is a lot. I get the Saquon storylines and all that stuff, but I don't really want to lay 7 points on the road on Thursday Night Football. I really don't want to do that. But I'm obviously not saying I'm confident here in the operation being run by the New York Giants at this point, coming off a loss to the Saints. But I'm gonna start here anyways and beyond the points with the New York Football Giants.
Okay. Wow.
That's where I'm starting.
Yeah,
That's where I'm starting.
I was gonna say you did not watch that game against the Saints. That's fair. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no.
I don't know that many people did, right? I mean, some of those turnovers were just an abomination, right? Jackson Dart
Mhm.
literally just dropped one on the ground without being touched at all. I'm surprised he hasn't been signed to the defensive secondary for the Arizona Cardinals after that one. But as for the numbers are concerned, yeah, there's sevens available. You got to pay the juice if you want the -7. You got to pay
Okay.
the juice if you want the +7.5 when it comes to the Giants, right? So we are toggling in between essentially 7 and 7.5, call it 7.25. And so we talked about this last week, remember, where it was like,
Mhm.
yeah, the Eagles are 4-0. But in a rare instance where like life imitates life, like the Eagles are actually getting downgraded in the betting market, right? Which is
Mm.
like not really something that happens when you go 4-0.
Yeah.
Kind of happened a little bit with the Chiefs last year. It was like, yeah, they keep winning, but like they're not covering a point spread. And then there would be a couple of games there where the Chiefs would dip into the 50s and then immediately cover the point spread. And by the way, have literally done that the 2 times that they were in the 50s this year, go back up into the high 60s last week, and they're not able to cover against the Jaguars. So like it's not just a Chiefs thing, it's not even just an Eagles thing, it's a good team thing, right? Like the idea is like you're supposed to win the games. And yeah, the Eagles do it in largely like an incredibly boring way most of the time, but like boring works pretty good against the New York Giants. And so I look at this going like, well, first of all, like Giants home field, like prime time. Like it just feels like kind of like it did on the Sunday night football game where it's like, yeah, they have a chance to be competitive in this game. They have even a chance to win this game. But then when you get down to it and you're midway through the third quarter, it's like, I'm going to need something to happen here good for the Giants. And again, with Malik Neighbors being out, there isn't that explosive element to the Giants offense. And so it is very much just like we could use some short fields. We need Cam Scatterbo to be making plays. We need Dart to use his legs without turning the ball over. And I just kind of go like on a short week, I rather just take the team that I think is going to win this game and then just quote unquote hope that they cover. Because from a value perspective, the Eagles losing that game to the Broncos sure wasn't going to move their rating up. And so we have seen the Eagles drop down. So let's put it this way, like let's go back to week 1 of the season. You got the defending champion Eagles. Obviously they win 4 straight games, but they were in the 70s from like an estimated market rating perspective, right? They were 71, 72 out of 100. They've been knocked down to 63. So if you go, well, yeah, like I get that because it's not all that fun and they lost last week, but like what if the Eagles actually do play this week at a 70 level? The point spread becomes 9.2 for this game. So there might actually be some value on the Eagles in this game, because I know like it's hard for people to believe that value might exist on a favorite, especially one laying as many points as we're seeing here. But listen, the Giants pulled off a couple of touchdowns early in that game and then just absolutely ran out of answers when it came to their offense. And that's going to be tough to like kind of dig out of the dirt here against the Eagles, even though they're at home. And like everybody has all the respect for like the Giants pass rush, right? The defensive front 7, the big names on that defense, but like what really good has it done them, right? They were able to take advantage of the Chargers offensive line. We watched the Commanders just be able to take advantage of the Chargers offensive line last week. And so, yeah, I don't really know that that's going to necessarily work against the Eagles, especially the way the Eagles play, where it's not going to be about pass protection. It's never really about pass protection with the Eagles. So meanwhile, we can do the whole narrative thing about Saquon Barkley back in New York and just the way that he absolutely ravaged the Giants last year. When again, they still had some pretty good players last year on that defensive front seven. So yeah, this is I don't know. Maybe it's me just being like, I'm pretty much done, Russell Wilson or otherwise, with the Giants in prime time being this sort of conceptually scrappy home underdog, when it just in reality it never actually works out that way.
So the pick is changed. The pick is
Whoa.
changed. Early. We're off to a racing start here. And the funny thing is, in part why the pick has changed is because the Eagles, pardon me, might just be forced into running the ball, which is really what they need to do. And when I say forced into running the ball, they're going to want to let Saquon cook in New York, of course. And that's just what they need to do in the first place. They don't need to be sitting back and trying to throw the ball over and over and over again. Like, we know that that's not where they're best served with their offense. So maybe they get the running game going. Maybe they let Saquon cook a little more and get back to business that way. So super easy flip for me here. Thank you, my friend.
They had no problem going on the road. Yeah, they had no problem going on the road in Tampa and getting a decent sized lead, right? Like, you think they can't do that against the Giants, right? And then at that point, it's Jackson Dart having to sit back and like throw a ton. Listen, it's not good. No, it's not good. And we want it to be good, right? I want all these teams to be better, because it's not all that fun when it's Saturday at like 2:30 and every game is 40-3.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it sucks that there's so many just horrendous teams. We're talking about some of these team ratings and stuff, and this is going to be kind of a theme throughout the podcast. There is a massive gap at a certain point in the below average category, where there's like kind of no just sort of below average teams. You're just kind of average, could kind of win on any given day against a bunch of these other teams. And then there's a giant gap to like, you're absolutely trash. And that absolute trash group now includes a bunch of teams that we didn't think were going to be absolutely trash because of injuries and stuff like that. So it's a drag, man. But it also means we're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive with taking some of these favorites. And I know that's kind of a weird thing, I think, for most people to hear coming from me, because I always kind of like, think that there's the best in some of these crappy teams. But there's also sort of the acknowledgement there's the worst in some of these crappy teams.
Speaking of, we head to London and
didn't even know a crappy team was coming up next, but like probably would have bet on it just on numbers, just on the odds.
Shout out to the Jets. Shout out to the Jets when you need them. Huh?
Yeah.
The Jets are in London and they are taking on the Denver Broncos, who are 7.5 point favorites. Just talked about Denver's comeback against Philly. Bo Nix was great late for 18 unanswered in the fourth quarter. Great job by him. But the interesting thing here is about London, to me. You never know how these teams are going to respond, how any team responds in London. What was happening to Addison last week in terms of getting lost?
Yeah.
I couldn't find him. Yeah. Like, what?
I'm going to go see Big Ben.
Just insane stuff.
I don't know.
So I got to go on what I do know. What I do know is that the Jets defense is not very good. Carved up. They're dealing with injuries. They're 0-5, not feeling good. And now you got to go to London and get whooped there too. That's got to be a tough spot. I don't like laying 7.5 points, but like I always say, if I'm laying that many points, because I think the team that is the underdog is really, really bad. And I trust the defense and offense of the team that is laying the points. And hey, this is where I'm at with the Broncos.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my problem with the Broncos here, with the requirement of winning this game by 2 scores,
of course, that's a lot.
Is this just a lot? One, yes. Let's start there. But no, like you and I, again, we talked about this Eagles game. I just mentioned the whole like rating concept. The Broncos have stuck. We start the season with regular season win totals, and we understand that they're, that's the starting point for their range. And the range can go up a little bit and go down a little bit. Mostly teams kind of stay within that as long as they stay healthy and they don't have catastrophic quarterback injuries or massive injuries to the defense and so on and so forth, right? That's the point at which they bottom out. And then every once in a while, there's a couple of teams that like rocket through the top of their range, but it happens really, really rarely. And the Broncos haven't done that. The Broncos have stuck right in the middle of their range, right at sort of where the estimated market rating was before the season started, right? Because most of their games kind of come down right around to the point spread, either literally by like a half point or so, or like last week where you're sitting there halfway through the game and they've down 14 points and you're like, yeah, Eagles are going to cover this number, I guess. Like that sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden they storm back and they end up winning the game. And so like, yeah, while it's not directly on 3.5, it just sort of feels like they could have just not covered that game,
Yeah.
and lost by a touchdown, or like they did, they could have won outright. So again, like the tight results here for the Broncos are what sort of I'm focused on here. But for me, the problem is, they come in last week, they play pretty poorly in that first half, and you and I talked about it because they're going cross country on a short week after that Monday night game where they hammered Cincinnati. And to me, that game not being remotely close to the point spread was a lot more to do with Cincinnati, which we saw both the week after and a week since, right? Cincinnati and
Yes.
Jake Browning let's put it this way, we're down to the point where they traded for Joe Flacco. Like, it's probably a Cincinnati problem, not necessarily a Denver, good thing. So going from short week to Philadelphia, then it's now they're flying out to London, and it's just like that's kind of a lot going on. And it's not like they're going to necessarily lose this game. It's more just like, man, they've played at nighttime, they played at 1 o'clock, and now they're going to play at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, right? There's a bunch of different sort of, um, time and jet lag elements to all of this sort of thing. And like, if there was ever a scenario where the Jets might be able to take advantage of that, who a couple of weeks ago were the better team against Miami, right? And I don't know what the hell happened against the Cowboys. Like, believe me, that was just as much a surprise to me as anybody. But like, speaking of kind of outlier results, like that was a 2.5 point spread that the Jets actually took money on to get a little bit closer to pick 'em. So like, yeah, it was a weird game where the Cowboys took a massive lead and never looked back really. But like, it was just really one game. And then of course you could draw back and you go, well, the Jets are 0-5. And you're like, man, I didn't even really kind of realize the Jets were 0-5 because they played that super close game against the Steelers. They were the better team against the Dolphins. And of course they had that like wild game in Tampa Bay. So it's like they are competitive and they have been on the road competitive. So I think this is kind of the scenario where you're going to get the weird London game. And the
Okay.
Jets are going to be competitive in this one as well. And so when you're getting 7.5 at DraftKings at -110 right now, that's a bet that when you compare it to other sports books, that -110 on +7.5 is the best available out there right now. And that's the bet that I'm looking to make here on the Jets. Again, you and I talked last week about living in the uncomfortability that is the NFL. In some cases, that worked out. If you were uncomfortable with taking the 49ers on Thursday, or uncomfortable with the Jags on Sunday night or Monday night, or the Patriots on Sunday night, other times, you're sitting there with a ticket on the Raiders or the ticket on the Bengals, and you're like, yeah, I'm really uncomfortable right now. But you don't have to be uncomfortable that long because you've lost that game pretty early on. This one is that sort of uncomfortable game where it's like, yeah, man, things could get really weird here. I think this is probably a low scoring game. I think the Jets defense, while pretty bad, is also going to kind of come up here a little bit and play a decent game. And, again, the Justin Fields offense, like it's hit or miss. I think we might be able to hit a little bit better than we've seen certainly last week. Yeah, I'll take the 7.5 at -110 with the Jets.
The pick has
Doing
been
it.
switched. Here's the thing.
Second switch.
Here's the
Oh
thing.
boy.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Somebody out there track this. We got to track this. Somebody's got to track these switches and how they do.
It's the London.
I'm
It's
just
the London aspect of it all. And once you bring up the travel schedule, that is a huge, huge thing that I think matters a lot. That us sitting on our couch, we think we understand, going from this time to this time to this time, but then actually having to like play football, be pkill,
Right.
like your body taking a beating and not being able to recover because you're on a flight across the world, right? Like there's a lot there. Okay. We're in.
And
We're in.
nobody's talking about the London game last week because like it happened. These morning games on Sunday are great. We get to watch a football game with breakfast, but like also we forget that game happened because all of the other games then happen after that. It was a really weird game from like not like on the field.
I
Oh,
did
there's
catch
weird
that game.
turnovers
That
and
was
stuff like
really weird.
that. Like like the fact that the Vikings with like an entire backup offensive line seemingly had like a pretty good plan and no real issue with the Browns defensive line, and that Myles Garrett didn't have like 6 sacks in that game, like was just kind of a strange like matchup-y result. And then meanwhile, like Denzel Ward is getting cooked on a regular basis, and like not always by Justin Jefferson either. And so it's just one of those deals where like, yeah, maybe in the second half, Minnesota having been there for the week did actually play a part in that, where Cleveland didn't really have anything, nearly the energy that they sort of needed in the second half of that game, because Cleveland was leading that game at halftime. So a little bit more of an even up type of a deal here, obviously, right, with the Jets and the Broncos. I haven't seen whether the Broncos flew straight from Philly to London. That is going to be an element to the handicap for me in this game. I'm gonna have to check on that. I would definitely not love that if they flew from Philly to Denver and then back all the way out to London, whereas New York having a home game, this past week just hops over the pond, as they say. So that's an element to all of this as well.
Totally interesting stuff there, and we'll be up bright and early checking in on that one. Our next game on Sunday, we got the San Francisco 49ers heading to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs. Bucs at home and 3-point favorites. I am here. I will say it again. I'm here for the Mac Jones era. Let's go. What a win for the Niners last week. I know if you watched the pod, I was on the Rams, and that was before even finding out that I think at that point we were still talking about whether or not it would be Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, but I don't think we were aware that they were also going to be without Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. I know it was a possibility, but all of those guys being out and just laying it on the line last week. A great game, but this is a tough one for me from a gambling perspective, obviously, which I know is what we're here to talk about. You got my Niners and you got Baker, who might be my gambling nemesis, who no matter what I'm doing with Baker, I'm just on the wrong side here. But
yeah,
in this game, I found it so interesting that post Niners game last week, Mac Jones said that Shanahan came at him before the game about how angry he was that the Niners were such heavy underdogs and the line moving after all the injuries. I was like, hold on a second. All right, Shanahan. Just when I thought you couldn't be more of my guy, here we are right now. So this week, I'm riding again with the Niners. Give me the points in Tampa Bay against Baker and company, because I also think this Baker hype train right now, it's getting really high. The bandwagon's filling up with a lot of Baker talk.
It certainly is.
And I get it.
Yeah.
But give me the points. Give me all the points. I'll take it.
Okay. One quick note on the last game, just looked it up real quick there. Both teams are already in London. So the Broncos did travel from Philadelphia. That makes a ton of sense. But the Jets have also gone early week version. So I don't know that there's going to be necessarily an advantage on either side there. So just putting that putting a bow on that, as they say.
No, I was just going to say there was an article I saw tweeted out from someone for The Athletic talking about like the dark side of NFL teams going to London. And maybe some of the shenanigans that goes on. I'm like, bookmark that. Is
Mark Sanchez involved?
Whoa, jeez.
Hey,
I got nothing there. How am I supposed to follow that one up?
What do you want from me?
I got nothing.
What do you want from me?
Talk to me about Baker.
Let's move on. I was going to say, we were talking about football is what we were going to talk about. Yeah, man. So the Baker Mayfield thing is interesting, right? Because once people start talking about this, there's one betting market where that actually matters. And that's in the MVP betting market. Yes. And so that's the one market where you go, oh man, like people are really starting to talk about Baker Mayfield. Like we need to get down on this. We need to get down on it now. Still above 10-1 in a lot of places. It's time to get down on Baker Mayfield because like he's fitting all of the sort of criteria, right? And the path is starting to open up with Lamar Jackson being hurt and Josh Allen, having lost a game finally on Sunday night. It's like, like Baker Mayfield with all the injuries that go around. And when that happens, which is like to every team all over the league, one or two people are going to get credit for it. Either the quarterback's going to get credit for, getting past all of that stuff, or the coaches. And I don't think Todd Bowles is going to get credit for the Buccaneers playing the way that they have and the success that they have, because Baker Mayfield also has the stats to go along with it. And so it isn't, obviously that hype element does exist, and I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But the reality is like at this point, he's earned it. right? Like at a certain point, you're just like, yeah, man, like, do I want to mess with that dude at all? But from a fundamental betting standpoint, we look to the ratings, and the Buccaneers have, gotten a boost up. They are up into the 59 out of 100 realm here. The more interesting team here has been the 49ers, and to be an 8.5 point underdog against the Rams last week, they had, as we talked about it, they had to shoot down through the bottom of not just their preseason range, but the range that had been sort of, calculated, if you will,
Yeah.
when they played with Mac Jones in New Orleans and with Mac Jones against Arizona. Like, they were down into the high 30s going into that game against the Rams. And it's
Mhm.
like, you and I have talked about it on a weekly basis. Are we super sure Brock Purdy is that much better than Mac Jones?
Yeah.
Like, are we super sure that, like, as much as I like Ricky Pearsall, as much as Jawan Jennings is a good player, like, both those guys have been asked to fill roles of previous guys, right? Like, they were the guys who replaced Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel as the pass catching options
Yep.
for the 49ers. And I'm not besmirching either of those guys' name, but like, it's all a part of the same offense that Kyle Shanahan has been running there for years. And so the idea that, like, Kendrick Bourne, who was on the team a couple of years ago,
Yep.
couldn't be as good as Jawan Jennings. And Jawan Jennings was like Bourne's replacement because, like, just on time, because
Yeah.
they couldn't, bother to, and I'm not saying that sarcastically, like, they literally couldn't afford, if you will, to keep a luxury item like Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah.
And so, like, okay, well, we'll just draft a new one. Rookie deal, yada, yada, yada. So they do that with Jennings. It's the same thing with Pearsall when it comes to Debo or even Brandon Ayuk. But it's like, it doesn't mean that those guys are this, like, next level, cannot be replaced type player. They're
Mhm.
just really good players who fit into this system and are going to put up good numbers and make you want to have them on your fantasy team.
Yeah.
And so when the rating gets bottomed out because essentially those three players, because we already knew George Kittle was out, we already knew Nick Bosa was out, they have been for the last few games. It was just an obvious scenario where it's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen in this game, but I know that the value is on the 49ers. Now, all of a sudden, 49ers are still underdogs. And so you're still going to be looking at this going like, yeah, 49ers are underdogs. They must still be undervalued in the betting market. That rating that last week was 38 is
Mhm.
now 55.
Whoa.
It's not, yeah, it's not really a good play. If that game
Uh,
was played tomorrow under this rating, San Francisco's rating against the Rams, the line would be 3.8. Rams minus 3.8. It's a 5 point move off
okay.
of the result of last week. And you're going to sit here and you say, like, yeah, that kind of makes a lot of sense because, one, you're the one who said that the 49ers probably should be about 3.5 to 4 point underdogs in a game that they're 8.5.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that that's corrected. But, like,
Mhm.
it's one thing to correct that number and then still buy in on the 49ers. And that's the thing that I'm going to be thinking about over the course of this week, going like, I'm not getting the discount that we were getting. It's still the low end of the preseason range for the 49ers,
Mhm.
but they also still are missing quality players, right? So, like, it sounds like I'm kind of talking both, out of both sides of my mouth here. But, like, if the rating's 38, I don't care if Ricky Pearsall's playing. If the rating's 55, now all of a sudden it's like I'm going to need Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, and just more options because I think that the 49ers are going to have to do more offensively in a game that is a matchup that is different than the old familiar matchup with the
Exactly.
Rams, right? Because if part of the handicap last week was like these two teams know each other incredibly well, and like maybe it's low scoring, maybe it's high scoring, but at least they're going to be able to do the things that they normally do against each other. It's a considerably different deal here against Tampa Bay. So again, this number, I think it's actually kind of perfect from like a point spread perspective. It's just a matter of looking at, okay, who's available for both teams? How much do I believe in the Buccaneers as a considerably above average team, right? Like
Mhm.
as a 59 out of 100 team, when kind of all season long we've been just told that they're just around a league average team. Well,
Yeah.
how many more games do they need to win before people go like, well, actually, no, like they're a legitimate playoff team. They are full value for being the favorite in the NFC South, and they might have, crazy as it is to say, the MVP of the league at quarterback.
Yeah. No, the last thing I'll say about this game that I thought was super interesting was hearing Mac Jones say that it was the first time in which he's going through the playbook and they're running through plays and the coach will say, yeah, this guy's going to be wide open, and he's wide open. And he said he's never really experienced
Yeah,
that before. And so, like, it
of
gives you an added
course.
level of confidence and trust in the system. And it's funny hearing him say that, because that's what you see. Like, you see him
Yeah,
dropping back and just with confidence, like letting it go because guys are open, right? And so you wonder almost how much that advantage, and I'm saying advantage, you know what I mean? Like coaching advantage and game
yeah,
plan can get you through an
it's
NFL
everything.
season, especially against a good team like the Bucs, because the Bucs are really good. And for the most part, the Niners don't have a difficult schedule. So you can beat a lot of these other chump
Yeah,
teams, but you
yeah,
beat the Rams. Rams are pretty good. This is another tall task. So interested to see how that one plays out for sure as we head into Sunday's action. And the other part too is as we head into or continue with Sunday's action, we'll stick in
yeah.
the NFC West and we'll head to Seattle, or we'll head with the Seahawks, I should say, who are heading to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Jaguars are 1.5 favorites against said Seahawks. And Sam Darnold was solid again. Speaking of Kyle Shanahan, Sam Darnold was solid again last week. And even in the loss, still looked pretty good. I wouldn't put that on him. But speaking on
No,
putting it
God
on
no.
your quarterback, the Monday Nighter, Trevor Lawrence. I still don't think Trevor Lawrence is good. Like, I really don't.
I
I almost
know.
feel as if the Jags
I
won
know.
in spite of Trevor Lawrence. My guy doesn't know
Yeah,
where the play clock winding down. Like, as you're on a game-winning drive, like you're a veteran quarter. You know what I mean? Like, you're not young in the league
yeah,
anymore. You're not a rookie. You played a lot of football. Doesn't know how to manage the play clock. He's tripping over his linemen. Like, so much going on. But they won. They won. They covered.
yeah. Somehow.
You told me last week, as a team, the Jags are pretty good. And you know what?
Mhm.
I see it, but I'm still trusting the operation of the Seahawks here. The one thing I
Yeah,
do need to know is some injuries here, because I feel like some injuries are piling
totally.
up for Seattle, and that would be my only question mark here on the flippy flip if I'm flipping to the Jags.
Yeah, and I can't have you
No, I know
flip without sort
it's
of
Wednesday.
knowing that one way or another. We're talking about, well, no, we've done enough flipping already, right?
True.
Um, okay, so yeah, man, like Devon Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Julian Love, all listed currently as questionable. That was the big thing, or at least if you were to sort of um, kind of detract from what Baker Mayfield did in Seattle, it's
Mhm.
that the Seahawks throughout that game not just started the game with injuries, accrued them throughout the game as
Yeah.
well, right? Just a lot of Josh Job in our lives for the Seattle Seahawks. Just you know what I mean, like an alarming amount of like
Mhm.
dudes that we weren't really looking to get like a ton of run out of.
Yeah.
Um, again, like you and I talk about all the time, right? Like a jump and hug game for the Jaguars on a short week where, like,
Mhm.
yeah, they don't have to travel, but it's not like the Jags have some incredible home field advantage here. Seattle traveling all the way, literally about as far as you can travel to this game for a 1 o'clock start is not ideal. But, as we talk about this, right? Like the Jaguars rating is at the absolute apex of their range, right? So we started the season expecting the Jags. Betting market said 7.5 wins. That's the number for the Jags. Well, as you know, that is below 500. 8.5 wins is league average. And so the Jags start the season as considered a below average team. And they've won a bunch of games. They're
Yeah.
4-1. They just beat the Chiefs, right? So
Mhm.
like we have to give them some credit for that. And so their rating moves up to not just above average, but like 54 out of 100, which means that like it's kind of really right at the edge of their range. And so every week they have to sort of, and this is the case for everybody in the NFL, you have to prove whether you're worth what your current market rating is at. And I'm just not necessarily believing that they're going to be able to do that this week, because just some of the other teams that consistently prove that, like, yeah, we are better than our
Mhm.
rating from before the season. We are, including the Seahawks, which had a bit of a better rating before the season than the Jaguars did. But their market rating isn't out of control. It's 55 out of 100, right? Like, I think we think that the Seahawks are an above average team, and they keep losing these games at home,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like 49ers and then, close game. And it's just like, what's happened to the Seattle home field advantage? That, by the way, like wasn't any good last year. If it was even remotely decent, the Seahawks might have been, probably should have been a playoff team in the NFC West, or in the NFC as a whole in a wild card spot. So yeah, like it might just be that Seattle's just better on the road, which is an incredibly weird thing to sort of think about. But like fundamentally, like I'm gonna need the guys in the secondary to be healthy to be able to sort of trust that they can go across country here. But then the element is Trevor Lawrence, is he able to take advantage of that secondary the way that Baker Mayfield can? I look
Yeah.
around and like when Baker Mayfield's scrambling around in the pocket and like getting to the outside of the pocket, it's like, oh, something bad could happen here. When
Mhm.
Trevor Lawrence does it, there just isn't that same fear, even if he ends up rushing for like 60 yards in the game, like he was
Yeah.
doing that. He busted that out in a big way in this past week. But yeah, like Mayfield's able to do it with any wide receivers, right? Like he's getting like Tyler Johnson involved and just all these kind of random guys with the injuries that they've had. I just don't know if the Jags are sort of capable of that and just everything that they put in to, kind of like their first major primetime victory in kind of a really, really long time. I think it's like their first Monday Night Football win under the Shad Khan era. Your boy Shad Khan getting his first Monday Night Football dub. Going to be kind of hard to get back up a week later. And we've just seen the Buccaneers able to get back up on a regular basis. I don't know if we're going to see that from Seattle. I'm kind of hoping that we do.
Yeah, it'll be definitely a tough one and a good matchup to kind of see, because there's some tests here on both sides, right? To see who answers the call for sure. Not done on
Mm-hmm.
purpose, but we're still in the NFC West with the aforementioned Cardinals, who we spoke a lot about at the start of this pod, as they're in
Skip.
Indy. They're in Indy to take on the Colts. And needless to say, I'm on the Colts here at less than a touchdown. And I know that a lot of this, I'm looking at this line and I'm like, this is trying to sucker me into taking the Colts because it's less than a touchdown. That's what I'm looking at right now. And yet I'm
Sure.
still willing to be like, hey, I'm the sucker and I'm going to take the Colts. But when all of those things happening, right? And all the
Yeah.
bozo stuff I just watched the Cardinals do last week.
Yeah.
And I also watched the Colts just keep rolling.
Eh,
And I know it was the Raiders and I get it. But I'm like,
eh.
I can't take the Cards. I'm not taking the Cards on the road. I'm struggling to see the world in which I do that. It's just where I'm at. Too much bozo activity from the Cards. So should there be a more
One
buttoned up
last.
operation this week, 1 week later? Like,
I don't know, man. We're fining the head coach $100,000 for like yelling at the guy who did the dumbest thing of the entire season. Ah, okay. Like, let's put it this way: like, this game is or Cardinals Titans was so irrelevant to the NFL that if any one of the things that happened did not happen, and the Cardinals just won and maybe blew the cover and whatever, nobody would be talking about it, right? In the same way that like we just all kind of chuckled when Kyler Murray got hit in the face with the football.
yeah,
And we even kind of like not as hard, we chuckled a little bit when DeMarcado dropped that football. I was done laughing when the interception got dropped. That was the conclusion of my comic relief element to this whole deal. But like if any of those things happen, one, we're not talking about the Cardinals losing that game, and therefore we're not talking about the Cardinals at all. It's just a game that happened amongst four other 4 o'clock games, and it's not even remotely in our forefront of our mind. You probably don't even go back and watch the play-by-play, right? The short version of that game. I think it's fair to say, right? Any number one of the, and the
correct.
point is that those plays were so random in that it's not just like, oh, well, they gave up a touchdown or they gave up this long play or they turned this ball over. It's dude got hit in the face with his own snap and didn't recover the fumble and may not have had concussion. All of this stuff that is like, you say like a more buttoned up operation, like any buttons would do. Like we just need one button. This could be like a Miami Vice, like 2 button on the button down scenario here for the Cardinals. And I say all that because we all saw this.
Yeah.
And as you say, like you are being invited to bet on the Colts, who, by the way, we all saw, even just from a score perspective, 40 billion to 2, right? Like we all see this, and the Colts are still just being offered at 6.5. Like, come on in, the water's warm. Just take the 6, give up that 6.5. Like they're going to win this by a touchdown. When in reality, if any of the stuff that happened that didn't put the microphone or the magnifying glass, excuse me, on the Cardinals, if none of that stuff happens, you know what the look ahead line for this was last week?
Three
and a half.
I was right there.
Yeah, sorry. I know you'll get credit. We're gonna give him credit. He was on that. He was on
right there.
But that's the point, right?
Yeah.
It's like 3.5 to 6.5, and the 6.5, like taking the 6.5 here with the Cardinals is the uncomfortable part because we all just saw what we saw. But that's the kind of the point here. We're talking about value here. And like, yeah, the Cardinals go on the road. What difference does it make that the Cardinals go on the road or stay at home? Like, what do I have for the Cardinals home field advantage? 1 point? And that's only because like the other team has to get on a flight. Like the betting market didn't seem to care that the Cardinals were at home when they played on Thursday night against the Seahawks. And it didn't really seem to, and it didn't seem to be an issue for the Titans when they were coming back in that fourth quarter. And so like I think the Cardinals are just the Cardinals here. And like the market already suggests that they're a below average team. It suggested that before this past week when again the look ahead line was 3.5. And now it's up to 6.5. And like the disgusting part in all of this is, and this is just how betting works, this is just how the NFL works. I say you're supposed to take the Cardinals this week.
I hate this so much.
And by the way, like they can choke the game away and lose by 1 and like just headbutt each other with the football and like roll the ball down the field all they want. But if they, lose by 1, they cover the point spread. And that's the grossest part about this whole thing because the point spread is the, difference maker here. And honestly, like, would you be that surprised if I'm doing it again, drop the earbud again. The Cardinals are killing me here with the earbud. Would you be like really that surprised if the Cardinals, if the Cardinals just won this game? Like, would you be shocked if just all, they were throwing the ball around and Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride are catching passes? Like embarrassment, man. Like we haven't talked about it much this year. Embarrassment is like the biggest motivational driver.
Yeah.
To NFL teams. They're getting paid, there's always another week. But when you get embarrassed, that's the big deal.
Well, to give up a lead to a team in which, as I mentioned last week, their starting quarterback described them as, let's keep it a buck. We ass right now.
We ass. And we're still ass.
They're still ass. Yes.
They were awful. They won the game, and I'm still sitting there going like, I would do it again. The Titans are legitimately awful.
The pick is switched to the Arizona Cardinals at plus 6.5, hoping that somehow and this is the thing, right? Because we've done this however many years now. So when I'm saying this looks weird, like why is this 6.5 that I'm already tiptoeing and seeing the game that's being played here? Because it just
know what the right thing to do is. Yeah, but it's uncomfortable. Yeah, you're like, oh God, I know I'm supposed to take the Cardinals here.
It's fishy stuff,
right? Like I get it. It's just disgusting.
Speaking of disgusting, as we move on to our next game, the Cowboys 3.5 point favorites on the road taking on the Panthers, and I mentioned disgusting. That would be the Panthers, despite winning, but we'll get there. Dak and Pickens doing work, and they're fun. And the Cowboys offense, I mean, the Jets defense will make you look good, apparently. Jake Ferguson putting in work with a much bigger role as well. Cowboys offense just cooking. This is tough, though, because 3.5 points laying on the road. That's a lot. That's a big number over a field goal, obviously. And I know Bryce Young bounced back from a tough start last week. Panthers comeback win against the Dolphins. I'm more chalking that up to the Dolphins. As you know, the relationship that we've had on this pod with the Dolphins this season. I think we were on the Panthers last week, if I'm not mistaken, with the points. So it's like, not a surprise here. I'm on the Cowboys. I just think the Cowboys, I wonder if the Panthers would be able to keep up offensively with how Dallas is moving the ball. Dallas is showing to have a running game to go along with the passing game. And I'll give you credit. You were on it from the start of the season. As long as Dak Prescott is healthy, Dak Prescott plays well for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what we're seeing so far this season. So I will lay uncomfortably the 3.5 points with the Dallas Cowboys on the road.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like in the NFL, if you put two bad football teams on the field together, sometimes it can be really, really ugly and not be remotely entertaining. And then sometimes the Panthers and the Dolphins play each other, and you're like, this is an objectively entertaining football game. Like, and part of it is we've got like the 11th string announcer coming in. Like, I
Yeah.
think he's like your guy's like the Charlotte Hornets play-by-play guy, and he
Yep.
comes in and he's basically doing like a Gus Johnson, like early 2000s impersonation where it's just like 6 yard gain, and it's just like, okay man, like I'm down because the rest of these games are so terrible. Like I'll live this life with you for the next 3 hours where we just somehow think that Dolphins Panthers is a big deal, but like it worked for him. Like he's
Yeah.
got attention, and
Yep.
like I would be shocked if we didn't see him again. I'm listening. I think he's subbing in for Adam Amin, who's doing MLB postseason, right? So he's probably back in the mix. Maybe he's doing this game. Maybe he's just like Panthers all the
He's a
time.
Panthers
At
guy.
which point, like, kind of makes me want to take the Panthers because like he was so excited. I don't think the Panthers are going to get 200 rushing yards out of Rico Dowdle. This could be the Rico Dowdle revenge game.
Mm.
Is that a thing?
I feel like
Possibility?
there's a bar.
I
There's a
will
bar.
say there's a bar. The Cowboys are familiar with them, of course, so I don't think that that's going to happen. I will say that like pretty widely available, you can get Dallas -3 here. And for
Ooh.
me, like you just said, with regards to the Cowboys, like again, it doesn't seem to matter. The offensive line, was banged up last week. They were out
Mhm.
with two of their three Tylers, right? They only had a third of their Tylers, which is,
Yeah.
a challenge. Wasn't an issue on the road against the Jets. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Hasn't been an issue that they've been without CeeDee Lamb. They got, Flournoy in the mix here, whoever that guy is.
Sure.
Um, and like we've talked about, right? Like if we're just going to say that the Cowboys are an average team, just call them an average football team as long as Dak Prescott is healthy, then this line is short because they are still being rated below average unless their rating has gone up and the Carolina Panthers rating has gone up commensurate with it, at which point I would say no, I disagree with that. Because by the way, the Carolina Panthers next week, there's a look ahead line for their road game at the New York Jets. And
Oh,
despite the Jets playing in London this week, the Jets are like, we're cool. We're still going to play a game next week. Don't even need that bye. The Jets are favored in that game. So like the Carolina is not so good that there are not underdogs to an 0-5, potentially 0-6 New York Jets team next week. So why would we consider them to, be getting an upgrade in a rating? So
yeah.
again, the point is, if Dallas is just the, literally league average team that we think they are, the number for this game should be 4. It's not. It's like I said, -3 widely available. Again, when it comes to the NFL, man, sometimes it's just getting like 1 point of value here. I think you're getting 1 point of value here on the Dallas Cowboys. Again, for all of the success that Carolina had last week against the Dolphins, and as bad as the Cowboys defense has been, it's just I'm watching that game in that first half, man, and I'm like, Bryce Young, just like it's just not it. But luckily he had a guy on his team able to run for 200 yards,
Yeah.
which was great. And listen, it's a Cowboys game. The answer is probably the over, if we're
Yeah.
being completely honest here. But like it's a Panthers game and the total is 49.5. Like what? So like I think we might be getting priced out of Dallas Cowboys overs here. You could
Yeah.
then say, well, what about the Dallas Cowboys team total over or this, that, or
Mhm.
whatever? I don't know. I think at -3, that again, like I said, is widely available at -110. I think the Cowboys here are probably the bet. They're gonna have more people, more fans in the stands anyway in Carolina. I don't see how that's going to be some sort of home field advantage. So yeah, I think it's probably just the road favorite here, as uncomfortable as that is.
Yeah. Speaking of road favorites, our next game, the Chargers, 4.5 point road favorites in Miami against the Dolphins. I'm laying the points
Yeah.
here with the Chargers. Don't really like it, but here's why. The Dolphins continue to find new ways to disappoint their fan base, and blowing a 17-point lead to the Panthers definitely qualifies as that. The shot of your man's Money Mike walking off the field through the tunnel last week, and you can see he's got his like fresh, like off-white Jordans on and his designer like track pants pulled up to his calves. Just like, what do we do? Like, what are we really doing here right now? What is happening? But anyways, I say all that to say the only reason I hesitate here is because the Chargers keep losing linemen. They keep losing guys.
Yeah.
And they got to keep Herbert upright. He was fighting for his life last week, and it was a tough spot for them last week. But this is the Dolphins. I'm going to lay the 4.5 points on the road.
Yeah, the Chargers are getting a downgrade, right? Which is appropriate because, like you said, the injuries and stuff, right? I mean, again, whether it was, Rashawn Taylor before the season started, Taylor?
Alt?
I don't know. I might have missed that. And then, well, yeah, I was going to say, and then Alt this past week, right? I just don't know that the Dolphins are going to be able to take advantage of that. And so that to me is the matchup, right? But I wasn't necessarily positive the Commanders could take advantage of it either. And so maybe that's just kind of how bad it is for the Chargers here. And that puts me in the uncomfortable place of looking at this going maybe the Dolphins have a chance to win this game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of gross because if in theory the Dolphins, the best thing that in theory the Dolphins do is have talented guys who can rush the passer, which on paper they do. I don't know if the results have necessarily shown that. And it's okay, well, if they can get to Herbert, then the back end for the Dolphins that isn't very good isn't necessarily going to be a problem. And the Chargers are on their third string running back, and if Hassan Haskins was so good, they wouldn't have added all of these other running backs, right? Hassan Haskins played for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and they're still we need to be drafting Amari and Hampton. We need to be picking up, in the last couple of years, right? The J.K. Dobbinses of the world and the Gus Edwardses of the world, who guys who are largely, not all that sort of game breaking. And then, of course, this year they get from Pittsburgh, the running back who was lost to the Achilles injury before Amari and Hampton goes and hits it. Najee Harris, thank you. Before Amari, Najee Harris, and then Amari and Hampton goes and he's out for 4 games, and so it's just maybe it's a Rico Dowdle situation, right? Maybe Hassan Haskins is going off for 200 yards this week, or maybe it's Kamari Vidal, right? At this point, we're just naming Chargers running backs over the last 2 years. But, and the point is I don't know. I have a hard time laying it with the Chargers, given that the Chargers are in the state that the Chargers are in. So.
Listen, you keep mentioning on this pod the uncomfortable thing, and there's nothing more uncomfortable than needing the Chargers, right?
Well, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say there's nothing more uncomfortable than needing the Dolphins. Oh, and it's I think that's the more uncomfortable part. The fact that I'm sitting here going in my head, it's kind of like you with the Cardinals. It's I think the Dolphins are probably the correct side in this game. I just don't know how.
Yeah,
it's gross.
Sorry, Money Mike. I can't do it. Money Mike. Yeah. We'll move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers at home, 5.5 point favorites against the Cleveland Browns. And your man's Dylan Gabriel, he looked okay. He looked okay. He's doing some stuff. They were in the lead for a while, and then somehow Carson Wentz came back and won the game. And if you told me Carson Wentz was going to be leading game-winning drives in London to win the game, I mean, sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say, well done, Carson Wentz. But the Browns lose in London, now come back to play against Pittsburgh, who's coming off of a bye. How is that even allowed in terms of schedule makers, in terms of who's making the schedule? How is that fair? So I'm looking at this number, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was on the Browns, and I'm like, wait a second here. This doesn't make any sense. And this number fresh in the Vegas zone tells me that they don't really know what's going on either. And I'm going to lay the points with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm laying the 5.5 points just because the Steelers are coming off a bye. And I feel like they're in a way better position than the Browns are with their rookie quarterback still trying to get his legs under him.
Yeah. Nothing that you said there is wrong. I think maybe the reliance on the bye for the Steelers is maybe where I kind of draw the line, just because the like underlying metrics for the Steelers are like legitimately bad.
Yeah.
Like the defense is bad, and people are going to say, right, like, oh yeah, Dylan Gabriel first road start. I mean, he got just played in London, right? Like that was a
Yeah.
challenging enough circumstance, and
For
like he
sure.
played within himself, and he got the ball largely where it needed to go. And so like I would hope that the second week is maybe even just a little bit better, and maybe they're against a worse defense, like against Brian Flores' defense, like he handled that thing pretty well. And so
Mhm.
nothing about the Steelers defense this year outside of like the name brands has really been all that impressive. And just because they go away for a week, all of a sudden, like, it's like, well, the Steelers are like this, that, or whatever. And by the way, of course, like they play that game in Ireland, and they get a big play from DK Metcalf, and of course they beat the Vikings by 3 points. But like to me, those three teams, that little sort of mini round robin of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minnesota,
Yeah.
really just kind of tells me that all those three teams are like the same. Not like the same in that like one guy's got a 20-year-old starting, the other's got a 40-year-old starting.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
since when was having the 40-year-old like the better idea,
Mhm.
unless that 40-year-old was named Tom Brady? So, you're laying with the points here with the Steelers team that like you really shouldn't be laying the points with kind of in any scenario, certainly anything above a field goal, which like I think the one time this year that they were laying points above a field goal, it went badly when Seattle like waltzed into Pittsburgh and won that game pretty convincingly. So, yeah, man, like to me,
It's a
this
tough hang.
is the thing that we didn't get from Miles Garrett and the defense for the Browns. We get this week where it's like Aaron Rodgers kind of crumbling in the pocket and that sort of deal. Yeah, it's uncomfortable because of the circumstance, but like everybody knows the circumstance, right? And it's probably
Yeah.
why this number's 5.5, because the Steelers have had the week off, which again, maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. And because the Browns have traveled in such a way, but 5.5 here, and maybe like if this thing creeps up to 6, like to me, that's where I'm going to kind of wait to see.
Yeah.
Because if there is just that, like the very first bullet point is massive rest advantage, da 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 da. And if that means that people are looking to back the Steelers to a degree where they are 6 point favorites in this game, that's where I'm going to be really looking to jump on the Cleveland Browns here at +6. So don't get fooled by what the Steelers have done so far this season. Put it this way, like the Ravens are absolutely mangled
We'll get there
right now
next.
with really no sign of like salvage, and like they're still favored to win the division. That's how little the betting market thinks of the Steelers' ability to hold off the Ravens.
Mhm.
Because, by the way, like the other two teams are the Bengals and the Browns, and nobody thinks those two teams. Just made a trade that involved Joe Flacco, and I'm not even sure the team that got Joe Flacco is in the better place. So, like it's kind of between the Steelers and the Ravens, and the Steelers have the record that they do, and the betting market is still like, I'm not quite done with the Ravens just yet. And it's like, whew, might be
Yeah.
pretty close to time to be done with him. But yeah, let's talk
I
about it.
know it's my messed up logic, but my messed up logic is me laying that many points with the Steelers is just, if I'm going to see a good version of the Steelers, it should be right now. That's all. That's all. With all the
Sure.
rest, with all the Aaron Rodgers being fresh and he's healthy and whatever, cool. Our next game, though, you mentioned the Ravens, and the Ravens here
Hmm?
are home to the Rams. Rams, 7.5 point road favorites. My bad. Let me start that over here. Rams, 7.5 point road favorites in Baltimore, taking on the Ravens. Is that right? Got it? Good.
There you
Yep.
go.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And who knew that missing Lamar Jackson and half their defense would be bad? But wow, they got blown out by the Texans. And I think last week on the pod, my intro to that game was, if you're the Texans and you just can't beat, like it was a 1 point spread, I think it was. Like,
Yeah,
so
one and a half
basically
at the time.
the ask is to beat Cooper Rush with your defense. That's it. That's the ask. All right, let's go Texans. Anyways, the Rams defense might not be the Texans defense, but I think they're still pretty solid, right?
Mhm.
Maybe, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Rams
Definitely.
coming off a
Definitely.
bad loss on Thursday night, meaning they're coming in with a little bit more rest, maybe a little more attitude after being embarrassed on Thursday Night Football in that loss. And again, you're still going against Cooper Rush, struggling Derrick Henry. I don't like laying seven and
Totally.
a half points on the road, but here I am.
No, and that's the thing, right? It's that stark element of like, hold on a sec. Like it's one thing when, like you just said, like Houston's asked to be Baltimore's just ravaged group, and like you referenced Cooper Rush, and I know like the draw is to talk about the quarterback. I think that Cooper Rush is like the least of the Ravens' problems
Their
in
defense
that
is, yeah.
game. The defense being ravaged, and by the way, and you mentioned it, the thing that's like sneaking under the radar to
Mhm.
all of this is that Derrick Henry has not done anything since game one of the season, the primetime game against Buffalo, where he was able to get through a Buffalo run defense that like isn't really all that good. And as we've talked about in years past, is just in general a bad matchup for
Yeah.
what the Ravens want to do, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, they're a bad matchup. Henry has a good game. And then, the Ravens kind of go off and, they played the Monday night game against the Lions, but there was sort of a different narrative that kind of came out of that game. Lamar getting sacked as many times as he did, and the Lions offense being able to run right through the Ravens defense, which is back to the point about the defense being the bigger issue. But yeah, like Derrick Henry is kind of just not really doing anything here.
Mhm.
And as much as we want to talk about like Derrick Henry's workout routine and like him kind of, keeping it real here, we're talking about doing some quick math here, 148 yards here in the last 4 games. That's
That's
not
not
a
good.
per average, my friend. That is a total over these last little bits. So, yeah, like if the idea was, oh, Cooper Rush is going to play, but at least he has Derrick Henry to lean on, it's like, well, that hasn't really come to fruition. That being said, you look at the depth chart, Roquan Smith, questionable, Kyle Hamilton, questionable, Chidobe Awuzie, questionable, Marlon Humphrey, questionable, and at least questionable is better than doubtful, is better than out. So, that's at least something. And so can the Rams, who's, run offense for as long as Kyron Williams has basically been in the league, has been high volume, low explosiveness,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's just been a lot of just like kind of running into the line, which guess what happens in overtime on 4th and 1? You run it into the line play and they don't get it. But like normally they're good for 2 to 3 to 4 yards, and that's kind of it. So like the Rams don't necessarily have the same run game as the Lions do, or even potentially the Texans. But the Texans defense was never going to sort of allow the same stuff that maybe the Rams defense, which again, just Mac Jones carve you up. Cooper Rush might be able to carve you up here. So, they got the Ravens go on the bye week here, and the obviously the expectation is that Lamar's not going to play, so that he has that extra week to get rested, even if it was even kind of in the realm of possibility that he would play in this game. But as it always comes down to, from a valuation perspective, right? And we talked about it last week with the Ravens being in that pick'em game, they went down to about 40 out of 100.
Okay.
And again, is that all because of Lamar Jackson? Of course not. It's because of the team as a
Defense.
whole to get where this number is now. We're down to 31. We are talking about the Ravens in the same conversation as the New York Jets
Mhm.
and the Miami Dolphins.
Mhm.
And wait for it, Shell. Your man's Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints. Like that is the rating for the Ravens. And
Okay.
so if you go and say, all right, this team's being rated like those other teams. And if you just think that they are like those other teams, then that's fine. Go ahead and lay the points with the Rams. Maybe it's a Bengals situation where they are actually worse than all of those teams. Again, I don't know how many of these guys are going to be available from a defensive perspective. Even some of them, in the case of like Roquan Smith, I know people are disappointed with kind of like where he's at right now. And honestly, if he fell off in the same way that Derrick Henry may or may not be falling off, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be all that surprised given the sort of time served in the league that both of those guys have done. And so the difference to me here is like it's one thing when the rating bottoms out for the Ravens, and all that's required from the other team is that they win.
Yeah.
It's a different story when the rating bottoms out for the Ravens. They are theoretically the valuable side, and they can be a winning ticket without having to win this game. Right? Like they can lose this game by 7 and cover the point spread.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is Ravens or nothing. And you're like, oh yeah, but like what about all the injuries? Shell, did we not just watch the Rams lose at home to a team that had a bunch of injuries? Like, it is not like it is out of the realm of possibility. It literally just happened last week. So, another game for Cooper Rush with the guys that he's got around him. Maybe the offense gets a little bit better there, and maybe the defense gets a skosh healthier. And by the way, like I said, we're not asking the Ravens to win the game per se. We're asking them to just stay in it when things are getting desperate in Baltimore ahead of this bye week, where they could be would it be 1-5 if they lost this game. Like, you
So
can't just phone this game in because you have the week off next week. Can't do it.
so here's what I'm writing down, and here's what I will say on the pod
Okay.
right now. At this point, I will still
Okay.
be on the Rams -7.5, but I need to see
Okay.
some defensive dudes come back in the lineup for the Ravens. And if that is the case, that you give me like 2 out of 4 of those
Who do
dudes
you need?
coming back. 2 out of 4.
Okay. Hamilton and Humphrey?
Is that enough? I think so. Just give me 2 guys.
I mean,
I'm
listen,
asking.
if I got Hamilton and Humphrey back, I'd be stoked.
This is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Brooksy.
Yeah.
Then give me the Ravens. Is that fair? Are the people listening to this? It's Wednesday that we're filming
Yeah.
this, okay?
Well, it
So-
doesn't matter. I told them to go grab the +7.5, so they're good.
There we go. That's why the people come
Go
here,
do
right?
it.
You come here to get the information, and there you go. I'm just saying my pick when
So-
when we're documenting this, and I keep tabs on my picks. You know, I write it down.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if 2 of those guys play, I am on the Ravens. If they do
Okay.
not play, if none of them play, on the Rams. There we are.
Okay.
And now we move on. I know I'm hyped up. Too much coffee again on Wednesday morning for me here. And I still don't have a voice, and we're an hour.
I was gonna say, I
into this
feel like the
pod.
voice is coming right in. You know, it's coming around a bit, right? Right.
It's because we're fired
needs to
up.
be. I don't know.
We're fired up.
It's true.
And you know who
It's
else
true.
is fired up? The New England Patriots coming off a
I was gonna
massive
say.
win. So much so that they are now 3-point favorites on the road, taking on the New Orleans Saints, who are also fired up. We got 2 fired up teams here, right? That's why the voice is coming back.
All kinds of fire.
All kinds of fire. We talked about it on the pod last week, how this was a bad spot for the Bills. And I really hope that people listen to the pod and take us at our words when we're talking about certain things, and you follow the trends of what's going on and the seeds are being planted. The Patriots are just ready for the Bills last week. They're just ready. And that spread being, I think it got to 8 by the time the game came around. 8.5, didn't it? I'm pretty sure.
8.5.
And we were
Yep.
sitting here.
Yep.
I remember sitting here
8.5
at like
by Friday.
7.5, being like, let's go, Pats. Let's go. So the point we're making,
That's right.
Drake May balling, putting in work. Pats were getting turnovers on defense. Stephon Diggs, revenge game. Like, what is going? Speaking of revenge games, Stephon Diggs. But my guy, Spencer Rattler, finally getting a win. So much going on. I'm so close to taking Spence as the home dogs here. But if they were playing anyone else but the Pats, I would have been with you, Spence. I would have been with you.
Oh,
But I'm on the Patriots, and I'm laying at 3 points.
anybody else other than the Pats you would have been on?
Not
That's
anybody.
pretty high praise of the New England
Not
Patriots.
anybody.
I know. Listen, man, I spent an alarming amount of time on Sunday watching those games, and this is before the Cardinal meltdown just sucked the absolute life out of everything else that was going on, baseball, football, anything in the universe. Wondering to myself, without actually like busting out, a spreadsheet to actually see if I actually believe this, but watching that Saints game going like, is Spencer Rattler a top half of the NFL quarterback with the sort of acknowledgement that Lamar Jackson's hurt and Joe Burrow's hurt? Like, without those two guys being in there, and then so there's like more spots available because it's like, I know Spencer Rattler's better than Cooper Rush, and I know everybody's better than Jake Browning, and so it's like, well, there's 2 spots that he's definitely better than. And I'm flipping around, I've got multiple screens on, so I literally have Spencer Rattler playing Jackson Dart. And I'm like, Spencer Rattler's better than Jackson Dart right now. And then I'm also watching Gino's doing whatever the opposite of work is. And I'm watching Tua, and I was like, yeah, I guess Tua is better than Spencer Rattler. Like, this probably isn't a Tua problem. And then obviously through most of the game, I'm thinking like, yeah, Spencer Rattler might be better than Bryce Young. And so like, again, that's just the 1 o'clock, right? And I just watched Carson Wentz and Dylan Gabriel, and I'm like, man, whoever's had Carson, if either of those teams had Spencer Rattler in that game, like, they would have won a lot more easily than they did. And so, yeah, man, like, I just got into a dark hole there with regards to like Spencer Rattler and like his level of quality. And just, I mean, all of that is to say that like the Saints are, again, as I talked about, in that range of Jets, Dolphins, Giants, better than the Panthers and the better than the Bengals and the Titans, and have been joined by the Ravens because of the injuries and stuff. I think the Saints are better than all of those teams. And I think they proved it, if you will, in one single solitary game against the Giants, because as much as they got a bunch of kind of breaks there, like they hit an explosive play down the field. Not a ton of NFL teams can necessarily do that or have the weapons to do that with Rashid Shaheed, a guy that we had on for anytime touchdown because of that possibility against the Giants defense. And so I just go, okay, like, if we can get 3.5 here, like, and you've got the number 3 up there, just kind of skimming the market, like there's a plus 3.5 at DraftKings at minus 115. Like,
Okay.
to me, that's more interesting than laying it with the Patriots team that, like, obviously the Stephon Diggs thing was wild. Like, I've watched Stephon Diggs
It's
play the last
hilarious.
2 seasons. Like, Stephon Diggs has never cared that much, even probably going back to the tail end of the Buffalo era, right? And it's why he,
Them in
was
the
sent out of
playoffs, he didn't
town.
care this
It's
much.
like, totally, right? And it's just like, wow, okay, so well, that's one thing. And as much as Drake May was like making throws and get part to Stephon Diggs, that's like, whew, there's a universe where that throw doesn't necessarily connect next week or last week, or so on and so forth, right? Meanwhile, Ramondre Stevenson, the one guy on planet Earth who can fumble 11 million times and still have a job. Like, I'm surprised Mike Vrabel hasn't been
Insane.
fined $100,000 for like looking at him side eye after his millionth fumble. So, like, yeah, like, you tell me that the Patriots, because of that win, have all of a sudden like gained the amount of respect here that they can just go on the road and lay 3.5 points and just cover that number. Like, yeah, it's possible that they do that. It's just not something that I think is a 50-50 possibility. I think once you get the hook with plus 3.5 with the Saints, it then becomes kind of Saints at like a 55-56% type of range here. And to me, listen, anytime you can sort of make the case that something is a 56% bet, I'm going to make that bet. And so, yeah, again, might be a little uncomfortable because of the big kind of jump and hug game that the Patriots had last week. I don't have them being super consistent just yet. And they've played, again, a handful of really good games in a row here, but their market rating is sort of going up commensurate with that, right? And so it's not like you're getting a deal here on the Patriots. I think you are getting a deal with the Saints still, because people don't think Spencer Rattler is a top 16 quarterback in the current NFL. I'm not even really sure I believe that, but at least it's something worth thinking about.
Definitely made me think about it. I can't lie to you there. Definitely made me think about it. I think maybe Cardi B just has Stephon Diggs just, a lot more focused these times. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. And I'll move on.
Spencer Rattler or Mac Jones, Spencer Rattler or Mac Jones, if you had to pick
You
who your
can't
starting
listen.
quarterback was
I
tomorrow.
will not say a negative word about Mac Jones right now. So
I know.
I'm riding with my guy
I
Mac
know.
Jones. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's just what it is.
By the way, Mac Jones in the heat of Tampa. How's that? How is that going to work for 60 minutes? By the way,
Well,
something
Mac
to think
Jones
about.
barely
Your
made it
boy
through
was.
last week's game at night. He was walking
I
off the
know.
field, throwing up. His
I know.
uniform's like falling
I
off.
know. How about some humidity, Matt? See how you enjoy that. Assuming he plays,
Get
I
him
don't
more
even.
bananas.
Could be
Get him
broccoli.
more bananas on the sidelines.
Yeah, housing bananas.
We are on the Titans. The Titans will be heading to Vegas to take on the Raiders. Raiders are 4.5-point favorites. In what world am I watching the
Yeah,
Raiders and then saying they are 4.5-point favorites? And yes, the Titans do qualify as below anybody, as again, they are referenced as we ass. But
yeah.
even as we ass, I got to take the points here as two bad teams playing each other. Gino is just out here wilding. What do you have? 9 picks already this season? Like,
I know.
Gino he's struggling, just struggling. The Titans, I don't even know what to make of the Titans at this point. They're lucky to get a win. They're happy they got a win, but I'm taking the points here just because the age-old two bad teams. I'm not overthinking it. It's more than a field goal. Give me the points.
Yeah, for me, this is just a value, like sort of a principle, right? Where last week, and again, look ahead lines aren't, the be all and end all, right? The look ahead line for this game is 6.5. And I absolutely would have been on the Titans.
Ooh.
Even if that game had ended 21-6,
Mhm.
I would have been like, I don't care. Both these teams are dreadful,
Yeah.
dreadful teams. Problem is, right, the Titans come back and get that win, and now the line is 4.5, again, in part because the Raiders got the doors blown off by the Colts. But as much as the Raiders have lost a lot of games this year, they haven't necessarily had their doors blown off in really any of them.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not dying to lay the points here with the Raiders. But again, listen,
There's a reason
running
for it.
deal here. Well, no, I was going to say, like, running deal here this year is, well, we got to check the injury report, right? Like, if Brock Bowers, who's held out of that game, maybe potentially because of the Raiders didn't think they would have that much of an opportunity to win in Indianapolis, he's questionable. Michael Mayer's questionable. I think part of the deal here with the Raiders and Geno struggling so much is that, like, I think a lot of the plan this year was two tight ends, Brock Bowers getting thrown to 200 times this year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, like, even though even the games he's been out there, he hasn't been particularly explosive and hasn't been his normal self. And so, right now, it's Pete Carroll saying that he's week to week with the knee injury. Ooh, that's not ideal. And
Nope.
then, of course, like, they lose Colton Miller, their best offensive lineman. So I don't know. Let's be honest here. This is a 4 o'clock game. Um, Sadly, there's only three of them. I was gonna say, like, this is a totally skippable game in your life. Feel free to go ahead and skip it. I don't, I can't, I'm not betting on the Titans. Like, I'm sorry,
I
they were
get it.
awful,
I
awful
understand.
in that game. So, again, there's no value in betting the Titans. Like, they just came off of their first win, right? They're on a second back-to-back, like, road game, and they're the Titans, and they never cover until one weird-ass quarter last week, right? Speaking of ass. So, yeah, man, like, it's just, oof. Yeah. To me, it's Raiders here or nothing, and I think nothing is probably the sort of quote-unquote safer play.
Yeah, this pick on a podcast where I'm making picks for every single game just because that's the rule does not mean that
Of
I am
course.
endorsing anybody to lay real,
That's right.
actual, non-Canadian Tire money
Yeah.
on the Tennessee Titans. So I'll just
Even
say that
Canadian
and move
Tire
on.
money.
Yes, there's someone listening to this pod from like Virginia that's like, what is Canadian Tire money? Anyways, we move on to the Bengals. The Bengals are taking on the Packers, and the Packers, fresh off a bye, are 14-point favorites against said Bengals. Now,
Yeah.
I know on this graphic here, it says that I'm on the Cincinnati Bengals plus 14 here, but I'll follow
Oh,
that
yeah.
up with star receiver Jamar Chase at one point led his team in tackles last week as a
Yeah.
receiver. He had more
What do you think he
tackles,
has of the bonus? Is that a
right?
contract bonus for him?
As a
Leads the
Jamar
team in
Chase
tackles?
fantasy owner, I feel like I should have gotten points for those tackles. But hey, Browning, 8 interceptions in 4 games. This is how, as you mentioned, there's a trade within the division sending
Yeah.
Joe Flacco
The best.
to the Bengals. That is insane. As mentioned, Packers off a bye, but it's like 2 touchdowns worth. Like, I get it. Like, I understand it. But anytime there's like a 14-point spread and there's still weapons there, like, can't you just chase the ball, run some like bubble screens or something? Like, you can't do something to keep this within 14 points. I'm going to take the points here with the Bengals.
Yeah. And I mean, like, how do we keep in our lives? How do we keep sitting here? Like, how many times have we done this where we go, like, well, we're going to have to see what we get out of Joe Flacco? Right? It's just like, how is Joe Flacco constantly just this guy who it's just like, well, maybe, like, the wild part is, okay, one, in division trade, meaning that literally the Browns were like, we think so little of giving you Joe Flacco that, like, you can just have him. And it's like, don't you guys play later on this season? Like, yeah, 100% we do. And it's like, yeah, take him. That's fine. And then also they're like, yeah, we also have a super young quarterback room that includes Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And they're like, yeah, we don't need a veteran presence in that locker room because that veteran presence is Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Like, what is like? The answer is going to be nothing. But it's like, think about how little Joe Flacco is doing within that locker room to help Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders to the point where they're like, yeah, we could move up a handful of spots in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What? Like, that's really more valuable to you than whatever Joe Flacco was going to do. And if the answer is like, yeah, like that's super grim for like Joe Flacco's like general reputation beyond the fact that they just traded him within the division. So, none of those things are necessarily ideal, but like, as much as we don't know what we're going to get out of Joe Flacco on a short week or sort of a turnaround here of like literally changing teams on a week, and like he's number one in the depth chart right now. Like they are done with Jake Browning, and
did
like
you not see
the
tweet from the Bengals account? They're like pressing the letters on Flacco's jersey, and it's like hot off the press. It's like they're pressing Joe Flacco jerseys. It's like, really? Who approved that? Who approved that on the social media account? Don't they have to run that by someone in the front office? Because you're just asking yourself to be clowned right now.
Right? Yeah, we can't be doing that, guys.
Come on. Press Joe Flacco jerseys. Oh man. How much of the playbook is my guy gonna learn in like 2 days? The playbook's like, find number one, throw him the ball.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the plan is like, yeah, again, but we've seen it with Flacco when he started the first time around with the Browns. And that's what I mean. Like we've gone back 3 years of like Flacco joining the Browns, short term, like end of the season, and being like, what are we going to get here? And he wins comeback player of the year or whatever it was. Yeah, I think it was a comeback player, right? Like Stefanski wins coach of the year, whatever. And then it's like, oh, he goes to the Colts, and then the whole like Anthony Richardson. It's like, all right, let's see what we get out of Joe Flacco. And then like against the Jags, he throws for like 400 yards, and then he can't do anything the rest of the time. And we're just spend all of our like life trying to figure out what to expect from Joe Flacco on a week-to-week basis. I don't know. I think you're right? Because again, fundamentally, like it cannot theoretically get worse for the Bengals. The Bengals are rated 24 out of 100.
Yeah.
He just lost one player. It was Joe Burrow, but like they lost one guy. This isn't the Ravens where it's like, well, who's playing corner? And it's like, we don't know. And it's just unbelievable that it could be this bad for the Bengals. And yet, like, it does appear that it is. And so, meanwhile, like the Packers just come off of their bye week, but like a tie against Dallas. That's a team that right now, because all these teams have come down, right? The Bills rating has come down because they haven't covered in like a month. And the Chiefs rating is kind of getting wonky. You know, it's up and down, it's up and down. The Eagles, we've talked about 4-0, their ratings come down. And the Ravens, who were the number one rated team like 3 weeks ago, is all of a sudden like the fourth worst team in the league. Yeah. There is nobody in the 70s. I don't have anybody in the 70s. There are no Super Bowl favorites, like teams that we would expect to see in the Super Bowl. There's a bunch in the high 60s. The Packers are one of those teams. They're the second rated team, I guess, behind the Chiefs here. Like, wow. Like, it's grim at the top. It's grim at the bottom. It's grim across the league.
Yeah. It's tough shaking here, but I'll take the 14 points and hope that Jamar Chase can, backdoor cover, broken play late. I don't know, whatever. Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football.
Here we go.
That's what we're talking here. And it's a big time matchup as well. In this matchup, we got the Lions in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. I will be taking the points with the Detroit Lions because the Lions just keep covering spreads. No matter what spread you put in front of them, they just look like a legit wagon again. The Chiefs, you warned me about them last week on Monday night. You did. The signs were there. The signs were there. And I didn't listen. But here's the thing. I'm taking the team with the better points that I feel is a better team that is also getting points. That's where I'm at. But also when I watch the Chiefs, the thing that seems concerning to me again is that even with, getting Xavier Worthy back, their offense still isn't moving the same way that you would hope for it to be, And then on the defensive end, I don't know if their defense is the same defense that we've seen over the last couple of years. And I also ask,
Sure.
couldn't one person have just touched Trevor Lawrence while he was crawling on the ground with the game on the line? Like nobody could have just
Yeah.
like dove and like tapped his toe
Yeah.
or something.
Like
Like, what are we doing
like
here?
DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street, like he's on the lewds, like just
Yeah.
crawling around in the backfield.
It's like the game is on the line. Anyways, I say all that
Yeah.
to say I'm on the Lions. Lions, they'll be up for this game, prime time, all that fun stuff. Give me the points.
Yeah, it's got to be like just the prime time element here that is making this line as high as it is. I'll put it this way, right? 2.5 point spread.
Mm-hmm.
We know that like the highest home field advantage is like 2 points, right?
Okay.
And that is for some of the better teams and some of the more obvious home field advantage locations. So this line is telling you that the market thinks the Chiefs are better than the Lions.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe a lot of people would be like, yeah, man, of course they are. I don't have that.
I don't have that. Yeah,
I don't
see
have that either, right?
And you know, I
And
love
so,
the
like,
Chiefs.
yeah. Like, if you don't have that, who does have that? And like, the Chiefs are 10.5 next week against the Raiders in current look ahead lines.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Detroit is -4.5 against Tampa Bay at
Okay.
home on a Monday night game. And
Wow.
so I just I can't get to the Chiefs. And listen, the point is like, yeah, I guess I can kind of get to Chiefs -1.5 if you want to say these two teams are equal.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've said it a million times. When the Chiefs are rated in the high 60s, which right now their rating would be 68 out of 100, and the
Oof.
Lions rating would be 66, 67.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to get to 2.5, either the Chiefs rating has to go higher than that. No, no, no. Or the Lions rating has to go lower than that. No, no, no. And so, like, yeah, it's under a field goal. And so it's kind of in that spot where the Chiefs just pull off wins and, they just get that field goal to win. And, like, you're just kind of asking them to win and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can't get to 2.5 here. It'd be amazing if it somehow got to 3. I will also say, as we haven't really touched on any of these legs possibly being an option, Lions +8.5 in a teaser leg. How does that go wrong?
It's juicy.
How does that go wrong? How does that go wrong? So you're gonna have to find something to play with it. Play it with, I should say. Play with it
Mm-hmm.
sounds a lot different. But yeah, man, like I think there's a little bit of value here. I think obviously kind of the Lions money line would be where you sort of extract that value necessarily. But certainly getting the 2.5 and being able to bump it up to 8.5 is like, let's find a leg to play with that as sort of quickly as we possibly can here. If you were super into the Rams,
Was
conceptually against the
just
Ravens,
thinking that too.
right? Like any of these sort of even start it, maybe do like a start it, finish it with like Eagles -1.5
Mm-hmm.
into Kansas City, Detroit +8.5. I think that might be where the party is
Mm-hmm.
happening in Teaser Town this week.
Party time
Oh,
indeed. Monday Night Football. We got 2 Monday Night Football games for you here. The Buffalo Bills, 4.5 point favorites on the road in Atlanta. We mentioned Josh Allen and company. Tough week, tough go against the Pats defense. Josh Allen still almost got it done. And the weird part about their season is we've seen the siege. We talked about it week after week after week, the Bills struggles that we've seen. Now you're taking on the Falcons team that's coming off a bye. And I like to think should be still seeing the best version of said team coming off a bye. And the last time we saw the Falcons, they did actually look pretty good. Penix looked good in that game, right? That was the good Falcons. So I'm here with the home dog on the +4.5, even knowing that the Buffalo Bills, you think, last week was a bit of a reality check within their own division, but
Mhm.
the Falcons offense, especially at home, and the Bills can't stop the run. And the Falcons are just smart enough that, hey, if we get the running game going, puts Penix in a better position. It's a Bills defensive weakness. I like the +4.5 here with the Falcons.
Just cooking. Absolutely cooking. You're absolutely right. Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Right. And again, from market perspective, we know that the Bills rating has come down, but like it should have. And it's not just off of one game. It's more like it's like a finally situation.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, yeah, finally the Bills rating has come down because none of these teams are so great that we should just be kind of penciling them in for a conference championship type of a game. Right. And it's like
Mhm.
we get all excited because they beat the Ravens in the first game and the Ravens were largely at full health. And so it was impressive. I mean, it required an epic comeback. It wasn't so impressive for 3.5 quarters. So it's like the Bills' reputation right now is essentially built off of a half a quarter against the Ravens at the end of that game,
Mhm.
and then like beating the brakes off of the Jets, essentially knocking Justin Fields out of that game. A Jets team that, again, for as much as we think that like maybe things could be getting a little bit better here, or maybe it's not as bad as last week for the Jets, like they're still an 0-5 football team, right? And so, if you start messing around with the Bills rating, and like God forbid, because like the AFC Championship will be the last game in, the former Rich Stadium of Buffalo, wherever Era Mark or New Era or whatever stadium it's called now. But like, if you start messing around with like the Bills rating and you start kind of kicking it down a little bit, honestly, it starts to get more and more appropriate given certainly the last few games, right?
Mhm.
Like we get down to a sort of point where it's still at this rating 11.5 against Miami.
Mhm.
Well, like, so that means it could go down a little further because they won that game by 10, and even 10 was somewhat cosmetic. Against the Saints the following week, the Bills, the number for that game was, you'll recall, 16, 15.5, whatever. The Bills' current rating would make that number 11.5 against the Saints.
Mm.
Yeah, still pretty high, knowing what we already saw from that game. I think they ended up winning that game by 11 or 12, but again, a very cosmetic type thing. Even the rating for this game, where the Bills have been dropped after losing at home outright, would have been 6.5 last week at home against the Patriots. If you played that game again, Shell, would you like the Patriots at plus 6.5? I kind of think I would,
Yeah.
right? Which to me means that maybe the Bills rating needs to come down even a little bit further. And so if the rating needs to be coming down here a little bit further, then like maybe this line should be +4 or +3.5 or even +3. But it's not going to be because of the Bills' reputation. The
Yeah.
Bills' reputation, like they're going to get bounce back talk from the loss last week, right?
Mhm.
Josh Allen, there's nothing wrong with him from a health perspective, right? He just has to go back to being awesome. But like the rest of the team, the reason that Josh Allen was the MVP last year is because the rest of the team is still lacking something,
Yeah.
right? And the greatest trick that Sean McDermott ever played was having Josh Allen as his quarterback. So it's not
Yeah.
like this they're coaching him up in some epic way. A couple of years ago they fired the offensive coordinator. They get Joe Brady to come in and he works really nicely with Josh Allen, but it doesn't make them the Super Bowl favorites
Mhm.
because they haven't even been to the Super Bowl. Right? Like I don't want to like trash the Bills here, but eventually you just again, that was the sort of secret, if you will, going into that game against the Patriots and going like this Bills team is just overrated right now. Unlike some of these other teams, I'd use the Colts as an example. Like until you start covering point spreads on a weekly basis, you are not earning the rating that you are sitting at. And so we're at a point here where like this could fall even further. It the Bills haven't fallen to where the Eagles rating is.
Yeah.
The Bills rating hasn't fallen to where the Chiefs rating was after they were 0-2 and after they were 1-2, right? Remember, like the Chiefs were home underdogs to the Ravens in week 4. Why
Mhm.
did the Bills not get treated like the Eagles or the Chiefs in these circumstances? Because they win the games up until last week,
Mhm.
but they were playing the Dolphins and the Saints. So, like, I think the Bills' rating, their average sort of play level here, can come down a little bit, which means I think that there's value on the home underdog beyond the element of it's a pretty good matchup for the Falcons. They are well rested and they're playing at home in prime time. All sort of general things you like from your underdog here. And it's not
Yeah.
like the Falcons rating is any great, shakes here. They are being rated as they're being
Yeah.
rated as a below average team. Shell, they're being rated like the Arizona Cardinals right now. This is the same rating as the Arizona Cardinals.
Not a fan of the Cardinals right
Falcons are better than you. Yeah. I know the Cardinals keep rearing their quite literally ugly heads, or at least damaged heads because footballs keep slamming into them.
now.
But yeah, man, like think about it that way. Falcons are being rated like the Cardinals. These ain't the same birds.
Crazy stuff there for sure. One more game on the sched. Also Monday night, we got the Bears in Washington taking on the Commanders as 4.5-point favorites are said Washington Commanders. It's a lot of points. But isn't it great to have Jaden Daniels back in the lineup? Took a while to get going, but they did and looked good. Looked pretty good. It's like, oh yeah, forgot about that guy. The Bears off a bye. Sounds like a familiar tale here. Again, scheduling. Off a bye and playing Monday night. Like who's like, isn't that seems kind of like an unfair scheduling advantage for
so much rest,
right? So all the rest.
Maybe too much. Some are saying too much.
I'm on the Bears plus the points here just because I'm hoping like, can't this be, again, shouldn't this be the best version that I'm going to see of the Bears? You're getting all this rest. You're feeling good heading into your bye. Maybe you had some good practice going on too. More time with your new offense and the coach and Caleb. And should you be feeling good here? You can't cover 4 points against Washington that I don't think is that good of a team overall. Let's see it. Bears plus.
Yeah, that's the dig. Yeah, that's the dig for me, right? We could talk about this on a Wednesday morning because it's like, all right, like what are the things? You can't get into everything. You can't have every stone unturned, if you will. I never really understood the word unturned. Are we just turning over the stone? We're turning the stone over. Is like, what's Caleb Williams been up to, right? Like, is there IG photos of him?
Is he a Kyler guy?
You know, is he in the Bahamas, right? Right. Is it Caleb of duty versus Kyle of duty? I think we were workshopping on something last week. Yeah, like I think the number's too big here. And again, this is because you mentioned like we were reminded of Jaden Daniels, or if we forgot about Jaden Daniels, whatever. And it's actually accurate, right? Like, I know it's a throwaway sort of thing for you to say, but like it's actually true because like the Commanders is why we start the season with like the range of these teams. Commanders come into the season, sort of the second choice in the NFC East. They were rated as like a 57, 58, right? High end would be sort of a 64, like when you're playing, on a really good day. And maybe that's kind of the best that they could possibly be this season. And then the low end would be kind of a league average team at around 50. Daniels gets hurt. That's when you can kind of blow through either side of your range. They go underneath their range. We had that game where Marcus Mariota wins against the Raiders, value all over the favorite on the Commanders there. And then the next week they go and lose at the aforementioned Falcons. And then Daniels comes back and the rating doesn't go back to 57 or 58. It only kind of creeps back to 53. And now maybe that's because, Terry McLaurin wasn't in or whatever, but like that was a pretty good recipe last week for an underdog. And you and I talked about it at the number 2.5. We're like, well, if this could get to 3, we'd be all about that. And certainly at 2.5, really good teaser leg. I ended up teasing it with the Cardinals, not to bring them up yet again. Again, that's gonna be the last time. It's gonna be the last time I talk about that game. And so, I look at it and I go, okay, well now with this line being 4.5, the Commanders rating is back up to 57, 58. Right? Like rating that high 50s. So we're back. We had a fair rating on the Commanders. Now that fair rating on the Commanders might have been because they beat the Chargers, a largely decimated team at some pretty significant spots, right? Cluster injuries at running back and at tackle for the Chargers. So did the Commanders earn it in the way that we would have liked them to earn it? Like say the Colts are earning their upgrades or whatever, or did they earn it by just winning a game that like they had a really good matchup with? And so I would sort of lean to maybe it's the other. Like if I had to guess, it would be sort of that kind of negative side, if you will. And then so Chicago comes in and they've got their bye week. And listen, they weren't all that great in that Raiders game. Like Raiders kind of gave them away that game. But, coming off of 2 straight wins, right? Vibes need to be high. And that's what I mean by like searching out information about what's gone on with Caleb Williams. Because again, every rep, every practice, every meeting, I think matters when it comes to Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. And so they've ended up sort of using Luther Burton. Burton is now more involved, right? And Zacchaeus is out there. And then you've got like all of this speed now. On the Bears offense. And if like we get the speed guys going and we can find them open space, now we're kind of cooking with gas here. And I think when we're talking about a team with the Commanders defense that isn't really all that great, we might have a same scenario as last year when the Commanders, for all of like the greatness that was the Commanders and making the NFC Championship game,
Oh yeah.
they needed your favorite play, my least favorite play of last year, the Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels, in order to win that game. And as bad as it was for the Bears and as good as it was for the Commanders last year, the Bears should have won that game. So if you're going to give me 4.5 points with a team that might have still a little bit of a more of an overrate to them with the Commanders, and a Bears team that is still not being rated as even an average team, right? They're still below average. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm going to take the points there. Why wouldn't the Bears win this game? Maybe Jaden Daniels absolutely drills us again with a Hail Mary, but I think this is another really close game. I think we're going to have a couple of really fun, close games kind of battling on screen on Monday Night Football. The double dip version of Monday Night Football.
Definitely going to be a lot of fun wrapping up week 6 indeed. But before we get to week 6 and the kickoffs of week 6, where can people find you for more of the information that you're putting out into the football gambling spaces, my dude?
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, the window over on Substack, substack.com. Type in the window, sports betting, Matt Russell, any of those sorts of things. Of course, you can follow me at mrussauthentic on Twitter. Everything gets tweeted through there as well. And then over at Yahoo Sports, yes, I still have to write an article for Survivor, despite being vanquished by Survivor. That is the last time I'm going to mention that. College football stuff as well. College football motoring right along this season. That's worth sort of mentioning because, listen, if you like the NFL, why don't you also like betting on college football? And we're doing really well over there as we approach the halfway point of the college football season. We don't like to do this, Shell. You know I don't like to do it. I can't believe we're almost at the halfway point of the college football season. Can't believe it. Can't believe we're already here.
Right, halfway point of the college football season, week 6 of the NFL season. So much fun going on. And of course, my name is Sheldon Alexander. You can find me online on the app formerly known as Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And reminder, you can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. Like, follow, subscribe, rate us, review us, all that other fun stuff. Because I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Clutch Picks Betting Podcast, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.